Good afternoon, Antrim County. This is Matt with Veteran Voice Podcast with your hosts, Carrie and Brandon, and our special guest, Angie.
Hey.
What's going on, guys? How we doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
All right, we got to get close to the mics. Got to almost like talk
Is
to
that
it.
good?
Yeah.
You can move it if you need to.
Perfect. Yeah, you can move it around and stuff like that.
I
too.
move mine throughout the
We're not
shows.
that serious of a podcast.
No.
Thank you for helping me out, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know we meant to have you on here probably about, 3 weeks ago or so. Weather. You got to love that white stuff out there. I've been praying for at least 6 more feet.
No.
Stop.
No.
I love the snow. That's just me. If I'm going to be cold, I want something, some reason to be there. So, but yeah, we were talking about having you come on, and if you'd let us, introduce us a little bit to what brought you here and what you do for the VA. And I know you mentioned your husband served as well.
You're right. Yeah, he did. Again, thank you so much for having me. I love the snow too, but I have to admit I am all about water and being on the water, being in the water, anywhere near the water.
Same.
That's where I belong.
Me too.
Yeah. So my name's Angela Linsenman. I definitely go by Angie. Call me Angie. I work for the Alita E. Lutz VA Medical Center, also known as the Saginaw VA. I work out of the Gaylord CBOC. My position is called Community Engagement and Partnership Coordinator. You might hear us called CEPCs or SEPICs. We'll answer to anything, really. And our role is really all about suicide prevention. So I'm a part of mental health at the Saginaw VA in the suicide prevention team. I'm a social worker, but even though I'm a social worker, my role isn't working clinically one-on-one with veterans or in support groups. It's more working with our community and our community partners to address suicide prevention together.
Okay.
And with that, it gives you like a really wide scope on, coordinating and resourcing with the, region. Because if I remember correctly, there's only 2 of you guys for the state.
Yeah, 2 of us for the Saginaw VA, yeah. So that's 35 counties. Every VA has community engagement and partnership coordinators, so there's several hundred of us throughout the nation now. But yeah, the Saginaw VA has just 2 CEPCs, and we serve a very large geographic area, right? Including the whole tip of the Mid and Antrim County included. It's pretty vast, yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
It keeps you busy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when I say like a wide variety, like there really is no boundaries to what you do in order to help prevent or get the word out there with resources and stuff like that. So I see like a lot of information coming from your office as far as like engagement or outreach and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. Thank you for bringing that up. So the VA has a national strategy for suicide prevention. And in that national strategy, they really combined the clinical work that the VA does to help support veterans, and they combined it with the community piece to make it a true public health model and make the efforts really more robust in all of our communities. And so in that national strategy, there's a couple of different priority areas. If you're okay with me sharing those priority areas, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
It kind of gets to what you were talking about, Brandon. So the first priority area is identifying service members, veterans, and their families. And in addition to that, the first priority area is screening for suicide. So identifying service members, veterans, and their families could mean asking the question, have you or a household member ever served in the military? Not every veteran identifies as a veteran, so asking it that way really opens the door. So,
True.
for example, in my role working with community partners, we might provide a presentation or education, even like what I'm doing here today, which I'm so grateful for. It's a perfect example of that. But say we did that in your community to a nonprofit that provides a particular resource to your community members, veterans, and all the community members alike. And say we had this conversation about suicide prevention in priority area number 1, and they, when folks access their services, this particular nonprofit hadn't typically asked, have your household member served? But through the education and information provided, they decided that they would ask that question, and then say they ask that question and they find out that 10% of their callers did serve. That's priority area number 1, and that's opening up a door for that agency, that service, to have a deeper, richer conversation with that veteran, to understand and validate their experience, but also to connect them to services.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
awesome. And it kind of goes hand in hand with Lacey.
Yeah.
Who is also at another social work. She is finishing her master's. Like, she came in as well. Sad thing, it was through state, but we'll forgive. But yeah, she mentioned the exact same thing as you were talking about there, where she's doing her internship with a drug abuse counseling, centers and stuff like that. And one of the things that was left off of the screening questionnaire was, did you serve or anybody serve, in your family and stuff like that. And then, through her identifying that, they are now starting to branch off into that as well, and figuring out the additional services that are offered.
And the way
for
that they
them, so.
handle people. I mean, not handle people, but the way that they interact with them. She said, she would notice that they didn't ask, but she knew that one was a veteran and he liked to pace and he didn't want to sit in the group setting, and she understood why, but they weren't getting it because they didn't ask.
Sure.
So
yeah, we
it helps
don't
a
know if we
lot.
don't ask, and we can't understand if we're not listening, right, to a person's experience. So, and that story about Lacey and this service ties into the priority area number 2, actually, too. So, priority area number 1 is identifying veteran service members and their loved ones, family, and screening for suicide. Priority area number 2 is promoting connectedness and improving care transitions.
Okay.
So when Lacey did that with this particular group, she helped improve care transitions for veterans all over, but also identifying that veteran and knowing what they were going through and being able to validate their experience helped increase that sense of connectedness and belonging.
Exactly, yeah. Because it is hard, I know, when they don't feel, even when they come in here sometimes, they don't know if someone can relate to what they've been through. And they might be a little hesitant to talk about something, even here. And we're all veterans in here. They might not know it, but it helps, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right on. And then the last priority area number 3, is lethal means safety. And lethal means safety can mean a lot of different things. But when we think about suicide with the veteran population specifically, we know that 73% of the deaths by suicide for veterans were caused by firearms. So that's higher than any other means used to die by suicide combined. So they took them all and they combined them, and firearm use was still higher than all of them. And so that's why lethal means safety and safety planning are so specifically outlined within the national strategy as priority area number 3.
Now, what does that mean exactly? Like, what do you do for that?
So for lots of things, like you said, earlier when we were talking, this is kind of broad. So we can take each of these priority areas and look at the community we're in, look at what's present in the community, how many veterans are in the community, what the gaps are in the community, and try to fill those particular unique needs of that community. But for example, so I'm at the VA. I started about 3 years ago, and when I began at the VA, I learned about something that was really surprising to me and ties into priority area number 3. What I learned and what the VA learned is that that period of time when a veteran is at their most riskiest place for dying by suicide or attempting suicide, so not just thinking about it, right, moving beyond thinking and looking at accessing a lethal means, that time that they're in that most riskiest place is actually quite short. That window of time is an hour or less.
Wow.
And there's for the majority.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And in that time frame, in that window, there's a chunk of time that's significant that's less than 5 minutes.
Wow.
For that window to close. And so when we think about that, and we think about priority area number 3, lethal means safety and safety planning, it tells us we could do some serious safety planning to buy time that may help that window close, or may help buy time for another person, a supportive person, a loved one, a first responder to intervene, or just for that veteran to make a different choice. So
Yeah.
how do we do that?
Yeah, that was
yeah.
exactly where I was
Yeah.
going for.
Right. So how do we do that? There's a lot of right ways to do it, and some might be unique to the veteran's circumstances themselves, right? So keeping that in mind. But some oldies but goodies. Hunter Safety 101. Your firearm is stored separately from your ammunition and unloaded, right? And then, of course, all 3 of you here know that the VA is very well known for giving away gun locks, right? I think I gave you quite a few recently. So that's another way. And then say also their firearm not only has a locking mechanism on it somehow, and the ammunition is stored separately and that's locked, and the firearm itself is if it has a pin, maybe the firing pin is out of it, depending on what the veteran themselves want, each buffer you put into place creates more time and more distance between that veteran and that veteran making that means a lethal means. And those minutes are precious. Time is precious, right? And that particularly can create that time frame for that window to close, for that person to intervene, or for that veteran to decide something different.
This is interesting. I've never heard about the hour and the 5 minutes, so it's good to know about. Yeah.
It was new to me too when
Yeah.
I had first started. That's why I shared it, because it's just such good information for us to know.
And it gives you kind of some hope, that there is a way to stop it. And even though sometimes, obviously we can't stop it all, but yeah. Good information.
So, with that being said, you've identified all this. How is it to get the word out to everybody? Like, what?
Oh gosh, yeah, podcasts like this are fantastic, of course. So in this role, the CEPC's Community Engagement and Partnership Coordinators, we do a lot of different things. And one of them is coalitions. So we might help create a coalition. We might join an existing community coalition to help address suicide prevention with those coalition members. And we might provide suicide prevention education and training. So the VA has a real specific, short, it's brief and it's accessible. Suicide prevention training that talks about the veteran population specifically, as well as the skills, developing the skills needed to have that conversation with a veteran to be that helper, because anyone in the community can be a helper, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so myself and our suicide prevention team, our suicide prevention coordinators can help implement VA SAVE suicide prevention training in any community, any place, anytime that they'd like. We really want to meet communities and veterans where they are at. So we try to accommodate as much as possible. So that's another way. we really work hard to build relationships and build trust as CEPCs, right? So it's a newer role within the VA overall throughout the whole country. And our CEPCs are working hard to go out there, connect with different community partners, explain their role, and try to build that trust and maintain those relationships so that these partnerships and collaborative endeavors can exist and ideally support veterans and their loved ones.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So what? This is such a heavy subject, especially coming off of 2 decades of war. And it is definitely taking a focal point, and it still is something that is rising, each and every day. In fact, it was this week we got a call from the sheriffs trying to figure out somebody who was, threatening their own life or whatnot. And
we lost one last month.
Yeah. It's happening every day, throughout the entire state. What brought you out of the civilian side into such a, and because you said this is 3 years now, and you hadn't worked for the VA prior?
Correct. Yeah. First,
so it's kind of like a heavy hitting subject right away.
Yeah, you're right. First of all, I just want to say I'm sorry about the veterans that you've lost here in Antrim County, and the veterans that we've lost all over our entire country, and that our VA puts out a national report on suicide prevention every year. It's public and it's online, so anyone can access that. And they just released the 2024 report yesterday.
Oh.
But yeah, I just wanted to share that, but back to your question, what brought me here? So prior to working at the VA 3 years ago, I worked at a nonprofit, and I worked in domestic and sexual violence, helping support survivors. So I knew I was ready for a change, but I knew I wanted to still help with the hard stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to remain working alongside and walking alongside folks who were carrying something heavy. And I feel very called to that. And as you had mentioned at the top of the podcast, I'm a veteran spouse. My husband did serve. While he was serving on the San Diego Naval Base, I worked at the Naval Exchange at the carrier base. So the world is not unfamiliar to me, and it does have a place in my heart. So that's probably, I would say, the route that led me here.
That's pretty cool.
So he was Navy, your husband. Thank him for his service, even though I'm going to give him crap for being Navy.
Will do.
We got to do it. Well, and y'all were married at that point in time, right? It takes a strong person to be with a military service member, so hats off to you as well.
Thank you.
100%. Now, you mentioned that the numbers came out from the VA for 2024. You have any idea what those are?
Yes, I did. So the annual report just released, so bear with me, but I do have a couple of pieces of information for you. So the annual report is the 2024 report, and they look at they're looking at data from 2001 all the way up into 2022 right now.
Okay.
And so I'm going to back us up just a little bit. And before I really start talking about numbers, I just want to say that although I know we're talking about numbers and statistics, one is too many, right? These are people, these are veterans, these are our loved ones, are people that we care about. So I just want to clear that up right now. The annual 2023 report, excuse me, I'm going to adjust my headset.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. The 2023 report did note an increase in overall veteran deaths throughout the country of 11.6%. And the report that just came out, just dropped yesterday, the 2024 report, indicated an increase of 3 deaths from the last report.
Three total.
3 total.
So, okay. So that's not a huge difference, but it's 3 different than, or 3 more, not 3%.
It's 3 veteran lives
Okay.
lost still,
Okay.
no matter what. But
Okay.
when we
Okay.
look
Makes
at
sense.
the data itself, over time, from 2001, what we saw was veteran deaths by suicide were increasing and increasing and increasing.
Oh.
And then I think it was 18 to 19, 19 to 20 where we saw a decrease in veteran deaths by suicide.
Sounds about right.
Yep. And then in the last report, we saw an increase of, that's where the 11.6% came from. And then this report is 3 more deaths by suicide from the last
Okay.
report.
Okay.
And so the causes of suicide are complicated and complex, and there's no one single reason for suicide. However, when we look at the previous year's annual report, I think it's important for us to note that the pandemic happened during that time.
Right.
There were significant stressors that everyone was dealing with during those years. And so that's one thing that needs to be a part of the conversation when we talk about the numbers, right?
Yeah.
That being said, the annual report is the numbers, the statistics are really, really helpful to know. And we even have some Michigan numbers too, and I can give those to you so you can put them on your newsletter if you'd like. But like we said, 1 is too many. So what do we do? How do we help, right? Like what are the things that anyone and everyone can take away from listening to this podcast or having a suicide prevention training in their community? What can they take away and implement right now, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it would be helpful to talk about, if you guys are up for it, some of the risk factors and some of the protective factors when it comes to suicide and suicide prevention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so risk factors are those things in our lives, all of our lives, veterans included, that might make it more likely that they attempt suicide. Right? It doesn't mean that if you have a risk factor that you will. It's just something to think about and know. So what could a risk factor be? Those negative things in our lives that could potentially make it more likely that someone attempts.
Drinking and drugging. I know that adds on top of it.
Change.
Yep.
Yeah, life changes.
Separation from military.
Yeah.
Divorces.
Yeah.
Deaths of family or friends. All those things.
Yeah.
Holidays too, I think, are difficult for a lot of people, a lot of
And
veterans.
just like the winter time, right?
Yeah, the winter, the lack of sun. Yeah, the darkness.
The reclusiveness.
Yeah.
Makes it difficult for a lot of our veterans here in this area. They're in places that it's hard for them to get out when it's cold.
Yep.
That's what I'm thinking of, just going by what we see.
Yeah, and those needs and those things that you see specifically in Antrim County, right? You guys know your veterans best. You're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so you guys are all right. So there's legal challenges, relationship challenges. Could be that there's a mental health diagnosis, a previous attempt. Access to lethal means is another risk factor. Yeah, you guys are right on. But on the flip side of that, there's some positive news. There are protective factors. And protective factors are those things in our lives or in a veteran's life that might make it less likely to go on to attempt to die by suicide. So what are some positive things that might be considered protective factors in our lives or a veteran's life?
Connection,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Interventions like counselings,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta access to care, right? Access to care, feeling connected, feeling a sense of belonging. That is
Yeah.
priority area number 2.
Yes.
It's a big deal. Yeah. Yep. There's also having those support systems, having services for both medical and mental health care. and having coping skills that they know and can use, and spirituality, a sense of connectedness to one's spirituality as well. So there's a lot of really good protective factors out there.
Yeah.
And when you mention connectedness, there's just this one thing I'd like to bring up that I've noticed in my just 3 years here, that veterans have a special camaraderie, right? They really, you look out for each other like no other, and that is a huge strength, a huge, huge strength. So if I could say anything to yourselves and your listeners, it would be to keep doing that, to check in with each other and check in often. It's a good policy to check in often. Check in when things are going well. Check in when things are rough and rocky.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime's the right time.
Yeah.
And battle checks. Yeah.
Even with some of our
100%.
people some of our veterans we have coming here, we know that sometimes they just need to call and talk for 20 minutes or an hour
Mm-hmm.
on the phone about something that we can't really do something for them specifically other than listen. Or like the home visits, sometimes we have to do those. So yeah, you can tell that it makes a difference for them.
On top of that, like with our coffee talks,
Mhm.
our meals, like we do quarterly
Yeah.
meals and get everybody together kind of thing,
Mhm.
barbecues. Just to see the, camaraderie within those, and then getting back to just talking that BS and the jargon back,
Yeah.
and giving each other just as much crap as we can.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And
And on top of that, we also got to think about this. You hit it dead on. We, as veterans, we definitely take care of our left and our rights. I mean, we do see it as a huge extended family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have one vet here who has made a world of difference in every person's life that he's touched, him and his family both. And one of the most selfless people we've met or known here. We have a ride program, and he is definitely volunteered to help take vets to and from appointments, using and stuff like that. But it's not just getting them where, to that appointment. There's a lot of connection being made during that time.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where it becomes a definite personal experience and brightens up, the mood, the outlook, the families, that connection.
Yep.
Like you said, it's huge to see the difference. We had a veteran who took part of that, and it's not just that. It was this vet. It was really just having a rough go at it, kind of just giving up, stop getting out of the house, even to where. Through engagement with the office, Matt in particular, get him in a better position, got him care, physical and mental, and then he started actually coming out to coffee talks
Nice.
Yeah.
and talking and the dinners
And laughing.
and stuff,
Yeah.
And so like that whole dynamic change between not just, his life path, but that family as
Yeah.
well, and then his connection into the community as well. It was a 180 flip.
Honestly, I think we saved his life a little bit there. He
Yeah.
wasn't doing very good, and we talked to him, prior, how things are going and everything else, and you could just tell he just needed to get out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And just getting even the coffee talks, it was, 2 weeks we saw a whole different person. And even on the ride back home, he told me
Yeah.
that he really appreciated it. And I tell you, I think we enjoy it too. That's why we have this job, is just being able to get,
Yeah.
we get to kind of live the lifestyle in a sense. And I feel better coming to work when I have my days off. When I'm not, and I don't have my interactions with my normal vets and stuff, I definitely feel a difference. It's kind of nice,
Yeah, and I think that was one more extreme case where it was so big, but I feel like there's a lot of other, like we could make a list.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I definitely think we could make a list of people that maybe we did stop something, or help them to feel better and to get help that they needed and
Yeah.
to feel like they matter. And so it is a good feeling, yeah.
Yeah. And that sense of connectedness for you guys doing the work, like you talked about, Matt, that's a sense of purpose,
Absolutely.
a sense
Yeah.
of connectedness. And for the vet you mentioned that's doing the driving, that's a sense of purpose.
Oh, yeah.
And there is just something about when you're driving with someone, you have a road buddy,
Mhm.
and you're taking them somewhere that just opens up the door for conversation, right?
Yeah.
There's something about car conversations
Oh, yeah.
that really just can become really deep and meaningful.
Yeah.
And so that's a great way to feel connected with someone.
Yeah. It's been a good thing, I think. We've seen several veterans too that, they've had rides, and some of them aren't with us any longer, but they were older or they have illnesses often, and they do just need somebody to be there with them sometimes. They don't. Some of them really don't have anybody else, and so it's nice to know that you make a difference in their life, that they're important.
Yeah, the VSO role is a very important role. You are needed. You are valued.
So you made mention about like the, so you have your 3 steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is intervening, right? Whether it's physically or, through other means of, gun owners, whether it's gun locks, safes, keeping ammo, stored in other places, just like hunter safety, like you're talking about, fire pens and such. It's probably one of the more difficult areas with a veteran
Yeah.
to get that,
Yeah.
that acknowledgement of that because of the protective factor that we feel, having that resource there, so it's kind of like a catch-22, with that.
Yeah, you're right. That sense of responsibility for protection among the veteran population seems to be pretty high, right?
Right.
It just doesn't go away. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe it just doesn't
Slightly,
go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. All I can say really about that is my experiences, right? So I do a lot of the veteran benefit fairs. I go to a lot of different events, and I always have those gun locks at my table. And what I can tell you is veterans don't mind talking to me about their firearms. They don't mind taking some gun locks if they need or want them. And I'll share a story of my own. I was at a public event and providing kind of some education and information, of course, and I had my gun locks, as per usual. I have some in my car now. And there was, I offered the gun locks, and there was a veteran who said, no, thank you, I don't really need those, I don't use those. And his veteran friend said, well, I'd like some. In fact, I'd like quite a few. I said, I can get you as many as you like, but they're calling me to come talk. I got to do my talking education piece at this event, and as soon as I'm done, I'll make sure I get those to you. And so I do my thing, and then it's over, and the friend who did not want the gun locks came up and said, hey, I want to make sure my friend gets the gun locks you said you would give him, so let's get it going. So it's just really surprising the number of veterans who really are okay and open to having the conversation. And then, too, what we do is when there's a veteran who's looking like they want a gun lock or they're going to take a gun lock, we say, we take as many as you like. Take as many as you like and as many as you have. And for the one that maybe you're not telling us that you have, we don't need to know. You just take the number you need.
Yeah.
And that actually came from our suicide prevention team lead, who kind of taught us that conversational piece,
Yeah.
and it helped us move it along.
It's a good
Yeah.
idea.
I'm sure the more exposure to the same demographic or the same veteran, it may not be this event, but another event they come up that they become a little bit more open and willing to either a talk or be take advantage of even if it's just the gun locks or if it's the information at hand, they're more receptive over
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been to a number of these kinds of outreach events, and I've seen new veterans, I've seen returning veterans at them, and A lot of them are really outgoing and engaging and want to tell you, or at least want to share their stories with us, which we're really honored to hear and to be a part of those events. We're so grateful to be able to do that kind of work and meet veterans where they're at in the communities that they're in. But beyond firearms, I mean, it's not just firearms. Firearms happen to be the most lethal means.
Yeah, that's what we do.
So it could be medications too, right? So medications, I would recommend to build that time and that space to help that window close or allow time for a loved one to intervene or first responder to intervene. I would say keeping your medications in a daily, weekly divider, and then the bulk of the medications are stored elsewhere and maybe those are locked up, just anything to buy that precious time.
Now, when you focus so much on that, buying that extra time, I get the principle of it, but what is shown on your side if that time has been bought? Let's say the veteran has, done that, put the medicines away, is there a huge difference between, taking action on within that amount of time, or is there any metrics that show or support that?
That's a really good question. I'm just kind of processing it right now. I think because we know lethal means safety, and we understand the different methods, like the percentage of the different methods that are used, and we know we can work to buy that time. What we found is that, what the VA has found is that the folks who have attempted to die by suicide or have been in that most riskiest place, like we talked about, they often do not go on to die by suicide. And that's not all of them, but it is the majority of them. So that can give us some hope. Yeah, it really can give us some hope we want to keep doing this work. We want to see those numbers go down. We want to make sure that veterans and their loved ones are well cared for and supported.
Yeah. And with that, giving them that extra time, are we seeing more, crisis line phone calls coming in for the intervention? I don't know.
Oh, that's a great question. I didn't pull Veterans Crisis Line data, but I can talk about the Veterans Crisis Line information in general a little bit. So Veterans Crisis Line is great. So if we're trying to buy time, right? And 988 Veterans Press 1 is on every gun lock. It's on all of the medication dividers that you guys got. We've got
and it's on top of our medications too.
Yes.
That we get from VA.
Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah. Anywhere it can be, we want it. So if a veteran's in that risky place and they decide, okay, I'm just going to go, let's see how it goes. And they do, it goes to the Veterans Crisis Line, and the person who's answering that phone is specially trained to work with veterans on the line, and oftentimes they're veterans too, right? Veteran service officers are veterans, right? A lot of VA staff are veterans themselves, have served. And so they're talking to someone who understands their world, and understands them a little bit. And so they call the Veterans Crisis Line. They get the level of support that they need for their unique circumstance and situation, right, which could vary greatly. And then the really cool thing that can happen with the Veterans Crisis Line is that your local, and this is nationally, your local suicide prevention team can then do a follow-up with that veteran. So if, say that happens in Antrim County, someone reaches out to the Veterans Crisis Line, they get connected, and afterwards they get connected. A suicide prevention team member from the Saginaw VA locally can call and connect and talk to them. And what's great about that is the Veterans Crisis Line is like a national thing, but the suicide prevention team members that are doing the follow-up are local.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So they know the local system. That would be our team. That would be the Saginaw VA suicide prevention team, the team that I'm in, that would be doing that connection with the veteran. So
Yeah.
they get local information. They are talking to someone who knows the area and knows the population
Resources
there.
and everything.
And they
Yeah.
can connect them to actual mental health therapy too,
Yep,
from what I've heard.
absolutely. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I know that we've had several that have, we talk about it to them, and they've said, yeah, I've called how many times, like some of them say multiple.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So it's good.
Yeah, and I think there's like some misinformation out there about the Veterans Crisis Line, and I like to think of it as a support line too, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
I don't think you have to meet a certain bar
Yeah.
to call that number.
We tell them
Yeah.
that too, like it doesn't mean they think you're going to do anything to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
I know a lot of guys are scared to call because of their gun
Yeah.
rights. They're like, oh my god, if I
Right.
call that, they're gonna red flag me or whatever. But it's
Yeah.
not. It's a support line for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you veterans are like, oh, I feel like if I take this service, I'm taking it away from my fellow veteran who might
You've
need
heard
it
that.
We
more.
hear that so much.
There's plenty of staff to answer all the calls.
Right. Yeah.
Don't you
Yeah.
be worrying about that. You're not taking anything away from another service member or veteran by
Right.
calling that line. Not at all. And another misconception about that line is that's out there is I think people think that they have to be the person who needs the support themselves in order to call, and that's not true. So me, Angie, if I'm worried about a veteran that I love and care about, I can call that line and say, hey, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, can you help me with some ideas and some next steps? And they will.
Good
Yeah,
point.
see, I never knew that.
That's cool.
That's pretty interesting, actually.
I mean, I knew the family members can call too. I know that there have been spouses that have asked for help about things and have used it. So, yeah, it's good to get that out there though more.
Yeah, I'm glad the stigma is starting to wear off a little bit. Like the 22 a day thing, I feel like that number's a lot different now.
Yeah.
It's a lot more, but the stigma it's surrounding suicide has lessened quite a bit since the VA's new approach with mental health. You know what I mean? With the new
Yeah.
programs and everything else.
There's so much.
There's a lot more. I mean, when I joined the West Palm Beach, it was my first VA. Terrible, probably one of the worst VAs I've ever been to, but I got the help I needed right away. And then when I got up here, I mean, it was just night and day difference, of course. Way better up here as far as mental health is concerned, but it just, there's help. Not like it used to be back in 2008
Sure.
or I guess
Changed a lot.
2013 when I got out,
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I was happy to see that when I began my employment at the VA, how many different kinds of programs they had that really centered around the veteran as a whole, you know.
Yeah.
So there's medical, there's mental wellness, they have whole health, all of these things that are just like create a system of care that's more well-rounded, more robust, and addressing individual everyday needs that a veteran or loved one might have, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk a little bit more about that whole health and how that really impacts?
Sure, yeah. So I think it could impact things in a lot of different ways, right? So Whole Health has a lot to offer, like the MOVE program. We have a whole health person who was talking about diet. And one thing that she said is that when she served, and a lot of people who served, they had to eat really so incredibly fast, right? And that's a habit that didn't change, right? They eat so incredibly
Still eat slow.
fast. You still eat
You were Air
I
Force,
do.
right?
You had a restaurant.
Yeah, I had a hard time with that.
But using that as a specific example of like, oh, a light
Yeah.
bulb goes off. That's why I do that. You know, that could be part of the reason why I'm seeing this or that in my life. You know, and, connecting those dots and putting those puzzle pieces together, and every little bit adds up cumulatively, right? Every positive thing in our lives adds up cumulatively to create a sense of happiness and belonging and contentedness.
Yeah. And I tried the acupuncture. They call it the NADA program.
Yep.
That was 2 days ago. Yeah, it was kind of cool. That was the first time I ever tried it.
Brandon's being a wuss
Brandon's
over
got
here.
different. He's a wimp.
It's
No,
voodoo. It's straight voodoo.
No,
That's
It does
what
work.
is.
It works.
It was very relaxing, and I was in that room. They have 4 chairs, and there were, I'm sure they were like Vietnam era veterans that were there with me, different experiences, and they were all kind of telling me, here's how it's going to go, and
Nice.
how much they
Helping
liked
you
it.
out.
And it was
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, it was cute. But they all said that was like their second or third time or multiple. So I know that people like it. We hear about it here too, and all the different things. So, and I always say, like, if the Vietnam veterans like it, it must be good.
Yeah.
Because they're so stubborn sometimes. Like, I don't want to go, but they've really.
Those are the ones I've seen getting
Yeah.
acupuncture, the
Yes.
Vietnam guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
like,
it's
wow,
kind of
okay.
cool. Yeah.
If he's doing it, I can do it then, I guess.
Yep.
And that your story is such a good example of veterans mentoring and supporting their fellow veteran, right?
Yeah.
Them trying to support you along the way as a first timer.
Yeah.
And you, your dynamic of some people here at the table at the podcast enjoying that service and finding benefit in that service and some not so much is a good example of how one size approach doesn't fit all, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, having many different things for many different kinds of people is definitely the way to go. And I enjoy seeing the VA trying to make those changes so
Yeah.
that they can support every veteran in their unique life.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, in the civilian side of it, there's not very much, I've never seen programs like the VA, the whole MOVE program, the whole body thing, the acupuncture,
Yeah.
the community care
Yeah.
appointments now that you can get were just night and day difference from like 10 years ago. I mean, it's amazing. If you were to go to a regular civilian doctor, I guarantee you wouldn't get the amount of care centralized, for you the
Yeah.
way it's supposed to be,
You don't feel like a number.
Right,
I mean-
exactly. West Palm Beach, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Hopefully
Big.
they're different now. Maybe.
Probably not. This West Palm Beach is crazy down there.
A lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of crazies.
Well, one thing we know is that change is constant, right?
Yeah.
So true. So
Yep.
true.
Ain't no sense in fighting it, that's for sure.
No. Another thing I wanted to talk about, if it's okay with y'all, is Compact Act. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So Compact Act is a fairly new act, and it allows veterans who are experiencing a suicide crisis to receive emergency care and to receive emergency care without expecting to incur the cost. And what I can say about Compact Act is a couple of things. One is many veterans are eligible, but not every veteran is eligible. And I have a Compact Act brochure here that does outline eligibility, and I'll pitch it here to you guys at the office so you have it for your veterans. But I'll use a scenario. So the Alita ELUTs, the Saginaw VA, we don't have an emergency department, right? We have these great clinics scattered all throughout our northern lower area, very strategically to try and meet transportation and geographical gaps. But we aren't open 24/7. We don't have an emergency department. So if there's a veteran who's experiencing a suicidal crisis and they go to their local hospital's emergency room, they can do that, receive that care, and possibly some care beyond that, including inpatient and outpatient for a certain amount of time,
Oh,
and expect not to incur the costs for that.
Nice.
Yeah, like I said, there is some eligibility criteria and there is some process criteria too. So the VA has to be notified within 72 hours. Documentation has to be received by the VA, that kind of thing. But yeah, that is something that's fairly new. And they opened up the door for other than honorable discharges to be eligible for this benefit as well.
Oh,
Good.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of D214s that come back and they're just, you can tell they got the shaft from their command. I know it happened a lot in my battalion, so it's nice that that's opening up a lot more people too.
Every person or every veteran is, situation is different.
Absolutely.
You don't know what happened back then and
Yeah.
why.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, Compact Out, it came out about what, a little over a year ago?
Yeah, yep, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool. Now, I wasn't aware of the eligibility requirement not being to every vet, so can you
Yeah, I'll
expand
have
on
to.
that a little bit?
Sure. Yep. So this is going to be a little bit tricky. So who's eligible for Compact Act, right? Veterans are eligible for emergent suicide care in an acute crisis. And the veterans that are eligible for it are vets that were discharged from active duty under conditions honorable or other than honorable after a period of 24 months of
Okay.
active service. So they have to have
So they-
24
Okay.
months of
The
active.
basic
Okay.
eligibility. Okay.
And then there's another piece to two other pieces.
Wow.
Veterans who served more than 100 days under combat exclusion or in support of a contingency operation may be honorable or eligible as well.
So if they were less than 2 years, but they did 100 days of combat duty?
I think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Okay.
And then any veteran who is a survivor of military sexual trauma is eligible.
Okay.
Good.
So what I would say to you and your listeners is, if in doubt, just call anyway. Just,
Right,
just
absolutely.
call.
Yeah.
And no
Go
matter
call
what,
it.
don't stop yourself because you don't think this will work. You know,
Yeah.
no matter what, we'll find the resources. Get that
Right.
care
Yeah.
right then.
Yep.
100%.
We have talked to, I know I have talked to other, some of our veterans that there was an MST or a trauma, and they served maybe less or maybe just below that 24 months, but for them to know that they can get care because they had a sexual trauma too, mental health care, that's a different thing than the Compact Act, but
Yeah.
maybe that's part of it, or is that separate? So if they served less than, it could be any amount of time, and if they experience any kind of trauma, like a sexual trauma, they can get
You're right.
mental health care.
That's
So
awesome.
that was new to me when I learned that. I didn't know. And that person, there was at least one person that needed that and was there for them so they could use it even though they didn't serve the full 24 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
They-
that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, for any veteran or any veteran's loved one that's hearing your podcast and hearing us talk at different times about benefits or hearing other people talk about benefits, it's never wrong to connect and ask, right?
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
sometimes benefits change, things change.
Oh, yeah.
So always call and inquire. And if a veteran is not eligible for a particular VA benefit or service, perhaps there is a community service, right? Like we talked about, that's available. There's a lot of really good community resources all over the tip of the mid of Michigan that are available for everyone. And that's another really wonderful thing that's a part of this role, this community engagement and partnership role. It allows me to know a lot of different community partners.
Yeah.
So I can help connect the dots and put the puzzle pieces together.
I mean, when you
Yeah.
came up here last time, you know, we had our initial meeting and stuff like that. You introduced us to a couple of them. One of them was what, Angie's Ride.
Kirsten's right.
Kirsten's Ride. I
Yeah.
apologize.
Mhm. Yep,
I
no,
apologize.
that's
And then Lemon.
Lemonade program.
Lemonade
yep.
program.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kirsten's Ride is a local nonprofit out of East Jordan, and they provide suicide prevention education and training. But they also provide grief support groups for those that have experienced the death of a loved one who died by suicide. So that's called a grief loss support group, grief loss survivor support group. And Kirsten's Ride does that. Ronan's Place in Indian River does that. There's some virtual options around as well. There's a lot of really good, we call it post-vention care, which is after a person dies by suicide for their loved ones and the people who are left, that they can access and receive both through the VA. The VA has a post-vention program too. And those local community resources. So, yeah, folks are really, really welcome to connect anytime with me for resources or their VA with resources. We just want to help make the connections so that
Yeah.
people get what they need.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the family thing either. I mean, I feel like that's really crucial. My, one of my buddies, died a couple years ago, and he did the same thing. And he left me with his big brother, which is great. You know, I got a relationship with his big brother and his mom and dad still, and they're in Wisconsin. And, they're still grieving. They're like terribly.
Yeah.
They still haven't gotten past it. They planted trees, done some things to help out, but I feel like that would probably help them out. You know, at least
Yeah.
get past it, because it's been years now. You know, a lot of people don't get that closure. You know, have those support services. So
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah, and even in Wisconsin, there are community engagement and partnership coordinators who might be able to help connect
Yeah.
those puzzle pieces. So if there's a connection I can help make, I'm happy to
Cool.
be a part of that. Absolutely.
Heck yeah. That would help.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. So is there any other information that you'd like to spotlight and put out there?
Sure, yeah. So earlier in this conversation on the pod, I talked about how part of my role is building and joining community coalitions. And so there are some community coalitions that address suicide prevention, some for veterans exclusively and some for all community members. That includes veterans, just depends on the area and what's available. But there's these different coalitions. There are a few of them throughout the tip of the mitt, and if there's folks who want to be a part of a coalition, everyone's really welcome to join, because everyone has a role when it comes to suicide prevention. And there's a lot of really wonderful, well-meaning, passionate people out there who may want to get involved, and so I want to make sure I open up as many doors as possible for that.
That's
Good.
awesome.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I learned some things today, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, like, she came here the last time and we were talking about, like, the Lemonade
Oh, yeah. Yep,
program.
yep, yep.
And Kirsten's right. Like, I should have known. My daughter's name's Kirsten, so I should have
Oh.
known. that.
I was kind
It
of
was-
going to jab you on that one.
Yeah.
but-
But the interesting, and then the Lemonade, they opened up another one, location up in Marquette. Isn't that correct?
Oh, right. Okay. I don't know if they opened up a brick and mortar in Marquette, but I do know that they are looking to provide more outreach throughout the whole state of Michigan. And that includes the support that they provide, the emotional support and the technical support that they provide, the prevention services that they provide, and the post-vention services that they provide. So could very well be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's awesome. There's so much information. There's no way to always get it all the way
Right,
out
right.
there.
Yeah.
You know. But we'll definitely take any kind of handouts that you guys have, flyers, anything like that, that we can help do that in your monthly emails as far as outreach programs and educational pieces that come out. We try to get it out onto our social media.
Great.
Yep.
Any way we can help support the mission moving forward, and any resources we can give to our brothers and sisters in arms, you know, that's our entire goal. That's the whole reason why we're here and why you're here. And you know, we can't thank you enough. It's definitely, like I said, it's a hard-hitting subject. Nobody wants to talk about it. I'm pretty sure everyone here at the table has lost somebody to suicide that we've known or served with. And you're 100% right. It's even though we may be looking at paper, they're they're people. They're not
Yep.
statistics. Everybody understands. Everybody goes through those times,
Yeah.
and be the person that they can, relate to and come to, and you get yourself through that hard time as well. Hang on your support groups and stuff, and there's going to be somebody else that flips that coin over and brings you up. We're always here for everybody. So
Yeah. And one thing I think that our office is pretty good with is no one's ever made to feel ashamed when they need help with anything here,
Right.
and they shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I don't think that anyone feels that way once they leave. I know sometimes they're a little hesitant about anything they need, typical. But I hope they know that they can come in here with
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
any questions, and we can lead them to the right resources. Yeah.
I get that feel from you guys for sure. And I think that anytime asking for support, it can
Yeah.
be tough. It can be hard to do that. So
Yeah.
I also wanted to share that we're here to help. And for your listeners, the Saginaw VA, the staff, we care about you. We're here to help. There is hope. We're here for you. So if you need anything, you just let us know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, Christmas
you.
is coming up here pretty soon, and we got New Year's back to back, you know, and if you're out there and you're getting to that point where you feel like you just can't take it anymore, 988, hit 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Every success story just keeps breeding confidence within the group. So
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
keep your heads up and keep moving forward.
Heck yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you said that you're a water person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Now what about, and that's the reason why you don't necessarily like the winter, but what about the polar plunges and stuff?
The winter is okay. I'm all right with the snow.
Okay. Okay.
But summer is the water. That's
Mhm.
where I'm happiest. You
I
know.
don't blame you.
Me too.
Now polar plunge, I have tried and failed, but I will share this. Growing up, I grew up my whole entire life in Mayo, which is a tiny town
Okay.
here nearby. And we would every spring when there was still ice on Loon Lake, we would go out on Loon Lake, me and my neighbor friend, and we would jump in. So and it was tradition every single year
yeah.
we did that. Until we were young adults, and not so much today anymore. I'm definitely a
It
little.
hurts the older you get.
Yeah, I'm a little more discerning about the waters that I jump
Yeah.
into these days.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I remember, so I was born in Texas, lived primarily in Florida until I was just about 16. My family's originally from Michigan, right, Adrian Onstead area. When we moved up here, I'm so used to the Florida and the lakes and swimming and stuff like that. Winter comes around,
The creepies.
and my godmother lived on a lake down there, and her boys and I were about the same age. So first time I'm walking down on ice. Now this is an artesian well fed lake and stuff, and I remember walking out there, and we were playing football, like just running and stuff like that. And as I'm running, I could feel the ice just start cracking it because it freezes in layers with that, you know, and stuff. And, man, it blew my mind, even to this day, to go out there on the lake and just look down and be like,
Yeah.
this could get real bad real fast.
It's like ice
So
fisherman.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's still pretty neat, you know, like to go ice fishing is something that I would like to learn to do. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I know my
So.
kids and I try to just swim we try to expand how long we can swim, how early in May and how late in October can we swim.
absolutely.
So, yeah.
And then you
it's always
switch
fun.
lakes to a shallower lake because it tends
Yeah.
to be a little warmer.
Probably,
Yeah.
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 Like, yeah.
Ice safety for your listeners. It's not time.
Right, yeah.
It's not time.
It's not,
Still
not
not
this
good
year.
yet.
Right. Well, Angie, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and agreeing to be here and helping spread the information, the words and stuff. And,
Yeah.
you know, for all the lives that you get to touch and to see and serve, thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having me. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I hope you'll invite me back.
Yeah, definitely. We should do this again.
Heck yeah. I like it.
All right, guys, we'll have a Merry Christmas. So this will be the last podcast until after the holidays and everything like that. So, guys, thanks for everything.
Heck yeah.
All
And
right.
everybody have a happy holiday.
Merry Christmas.
It's
Happy New Year.
Friday.
Take care.